our first award on the list is the Dingwell Award. Matt, you want to go into
favorite explanation of the year. I love this explanation. So back in 2012, we were sitting down watching San Diego State against Ohio State. San Diego State had a quarterback who had already thrown how many picks that season, Justin? 3 games into the season?
He entered, no, it was the second game of the season. It was the second game of the season, and he threw 4 picks against Eastern Illinois, I believe, the week before. So, coming into the game, we see that they played Eastern Illinois. He threw 4 picks against them. We were like, oh, man, this is going to go badly.
But the quarterback's name is Adam Dingwell. Well, I looked him up. He sells insurance in Texas now. Sorry, dude. We just got to use your name because it's stuck with us. Adam Dingwell goes into the first half, and he ends up throwing 3 more picks in that game. So he had like what, 2 touchdowns in the previous game at Eastern Illinois.
He may have had a touchdown like the previous game. It did not
one, maybe 2 touchdowns. So now his ratio is like 1-7 or 2-7. Still very terrible. But we've only played like 6 quarters of football. So 2-7 ratio is absolutely terrible for 6 quarters of football. He gets benched in the second half, and then the rest is history. But we carried that over to college or NCAA football 2014. In one of our dynasties, some guy had thrown a ridiculous amount of picks, not enough touchdowns. So we labeled that as our Dingwell Award winner. So in honor of that, this show has started the Dingwell Award for the worst ratio or highest number of picks if it's absurd.
There's no science to this award at all. We look at the stats and go, okay, this stat line is the most entertaining to us because of how many picks this quarterback threw.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to Updog Sports Talk. My name is Matt Miller, and the voice you heard in the background is Justin McGovern rocking a stick SMU hoodie. What's up, dude?
What is up? We are getting to the end of the season here. And
you look like the ideal fit for the Big 12.
I know, right? I still think of SMU as a Big 12 team, actually, even though they're in the ACC. So it's a little bit of a struggle sometimes.
Full disclosure to everybody watching, I do have bronchitis, so if you do hear me cough, it's because I have bronchitis. So, yeah. This week, we are going over our college football playoff reactions. They have a few things right, but they have many things that are wrong. So we'll get to that.
I think what you can expect is we're going to be more so airing out our grievances of the current system and how they're electing teams.
And I posted a tidbit of my thoughts last night, and guess what it did, Justin?
What did it do?
We lost 50 followers on Twitter.
Well, that's because they're cleaning up bots, but
okay. Well, still, thought it contributed to me. I thought I contributed to that, but I have gotten a lot.
You helped our bots fall off. RIP to the bots.
We miss you guys. We miss you bots. We miss that number being higher. But I have gotten a lot of pushback on my thoughts on how to fix an obviously broken and corrupt system for college football playoff. Then we'll have our Updog seasonal awards. And then we will finish off with conference championship predictions.
Yeah.
So Justin, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I maybe I should start because this kind of lays the foundation for the issues. We have a current system that has proven to be extremely subjective. Things are being used as criteria to select teams, but some criteria doesn't fit for this team, and other criteria is not used for this team. And it's just created a confusing system. And I mean, we saw it pretty much blow up today, everywhere. Like, people are like, all the programs seem mad about this. We had Iowa State's AD and SMU's AD had beef on Twitter about it. Iowa State, feels like their strength of schedule is not being rewarded. They are the only team to win at Iowa this year. Everyone else that beat Iowa smashed them on when Iowa was on the road. They were a very different home and away team this year. But, Iowa State played a pretty good schedule and didn't feel rewarded for it. Obviously, BYU, they have not outright, said anything on Twitter yet, but BYU picked up some quality wins, and because they got upset by a Kansas team that we'll actually talk about our awards later on. A Kansas team that got hot late in the year and lost to an Arizona State team that's playing for the Big 12 championship. BYU just got completely dropped off the radar, and the resume does not warrant being dumped the way they did. But yet, again, like, the resume seems to matter for some teams, not others. Obviously Lane Kiffin also complained, but who cares what he says? Don't lose at home to Kentucky and give them their only SEC win of the year. And also, like, I think where a lot of the blowback comes from, and where I personally want to push back on what Lane Kiffin said, is, he personally went after the ACC and acted like the ACC does not play football. Which is very clearly not the case. This past weekend, we saw an ACC team, Louisville, completely destroy Kentucky, who, by the way, as you mentioned before, Kentucky beat Ole Miss. Florida, a team that beat Ole Miss, was blown out by Miami, a team who is now left out of the college football playoff. And Georgia Tech went on the road against Georgia. And you know what they did? They gave Georgia their toughest test at home all year. No, it was not Tennessee that gave Georgia a tough time at home. It was not anyone else that Georgia played at home. They blew out basically everyone they played at home this year, but not Georgia Tech, who you could probably argue, depending on certain calls, that Georgia Tech probably should have won that game. And as it is, they took them to 8 overtimes. So very clearly, Lane Kiffin's direction here is very misguided, because he is attacking a conference that very clearly can play football. And honestly, every single conference can't play football. The SEC has acts like they're a lot better than the other conferences. And, they might have a lot of good teams, but they don't have the non-conference victories to act like they're the only conference playing football right now. Meanwhile, we're seeing Big Ten teams getting the benefit of the doubt without the strength of schedule element. It's just a mess. It's really just a mess. And everyone's mad because nobody knows why they're being left out at this point, because they're seeing this team get the benefit of something that they're being punished for. And it just doesn't make sense at this point. We have a nonsense system. So Matt, how are you taking it away from here?
So I've been contemplating on this, actually, even before the rankings came out, because I already knew that nobody would like the rankings. It's how the committee operates. And because of this, I actually am using ESPN's website for their rankings and all of that, because ESPN is big into the college football playoff. They have a big hand in it. So obviously there's a big power difference between the Power 4 and Notre Dame and the G5. So Power 4, I would have priority seeding, but based on conference opponents, there's going to be 8 teams in the conference championships. I would say more than likely 6 of them would probably make the college football playoff, win or lose. Maybe 5 of them. Maybe 5 of them, depending on what happens. But I counted 19 total teams that you could have in the college football playoff based on the current rankings and what I'm about to propose. That's 19 teams for 12 spots. So to fix it, instead of putting a 3-loss Alabama, which was not part of the 19 teams that I had come up with, so you have, for example, where's Big Ten? Big Ten. Oregon, Penn State, Indiana, and Ohio State. Those are the only 4 teams from that conference that I would consider being in the college football playoff. 2 of them are guaranteed. So let's go up to the who's the example I gave? Big 12. There are 3 2-loss Big 12 teams. In my mind, one of those 3 teams is going to get in. I'm not putting 3 of them. I'm not putting 2 of them. I'm putting one of them in. So that takes a 1 spot away from Big 12, and you can put it, let's say, Big 10. Indiana. Indiana is ranked above Ohio State in ESPN standings. So I will put Indiana in as
you're talking
the extra slot. Yeah. So like you basically move the, like if you were to spread out all the picks, you would move the Big 12 secondary college football playoff spot to the Big 10 to get a 3rd team in, or I guess at this point, a 2nd team in for the Big 10. I still think win or lose, Penn State should be considered. I would put them ahead of Ohio State in priority seeding because they're in the conference championship game, because they didn't just lose to a 5-loss unranked opponent at home. That's the only, if that happened, let's say that loss happened in week 4, I probably would have Ohio State in. But because it just happened, I am taking recency into account here. So right now, Ohio State is shelved for a maybe slot. Let's just say Arizona State wins the Big 12. Arizona State gets one of the spots. SMU, Clemson, Miami. Those are the 3 teams that I would have in consideration for their slot. More than likely, 1, maybe 2 will make it. But in this scenario, let's just say SMU wins. They make it. Clemson's automatically out. Miami's on the outside looking in. I would actually have them shelved with Ohio State as possible, maybe. But then if Army wins, Army's a 1-loss team. I feel like you got to put a 1-loss team into the playoff regardless. What do you think, Justin?
Yeah. After a long season, it's hard to maintain perfection like that. I know, some people want to doctor strength of schedule. They didn't have a good showing against Notre Dame, which kind of hurts a little bit. But, they rebound and beat a good Tulane team. I think that makes them worthwhile, even if they're in this like a 12s.
Yeah. And I would say the same with, Boise State, obviously, I would have higher than Army. But same scenario for Boise State. They're a 1-loss team. I think they should be able to get in. Then you take into account.
But, okay, so the question is, though, we have to ask is if Boise State were to lose to UNLV in the conference title game, losing to a team they've already beaten, based on their current ranking, we have determined them worthy of the playoff after the regular season is done. Are we keeping them in or punishing them for the extra data set?
I will punish them because of a recent loss, but I do think that they are shelved at that point. Them and UNLV get shelved, and if there's any spots left, then because Boise State won the head-to-head matchup, then it's really a coin flip at that point. I feel like UNLV did their work to make up for their loss in season by winning the conference. That I don't have an answer for. I didn't really get into like that deep into that. It's not my job to do that. I'm just coming up with a rough way to fix it. But look at the SEC. You have 3 teams that I would consider in the college football playoff. Now, if Georgia loses, they're a 3-loss team. I don't want 3-loss teams in this because there's so many 1 and 2-loss teams out there. Like, I would honestly much rather put a 2-loss. Who was it?
Miami.
Memphis, but yeah, Miami is a good one too. But I would rather put a 2-loss Memphis in over a 3-loss SEC team. I think that's fair enough because if you start adding up the losses and saying, "Oh, these 3 losses are better than these 2 losses," okay, well now you're outweighing losses over wins, and at that point it just doesn't make sense. So in this scenario, 3-loss teams automatically out based on current rankings or current standings. So then if Georgia were to lose, then Texas and Tennessee would automatically be in.
Okay.
Notre Dame automatically in. Wacky loss. We'll get to that later. Then you're kind of splitting hairs because now I can't keep track of how many teams we said that were actually in, but I know we're pretty damn close to 12. So someone's got to go, someone's got to stay. At that point, I do think in the Power 4 conference championship, like making the conference championship counts to something. Like you finish second in the rankings, you got to be able to get some kind of reward for that.
Yeah, I think you've got a rough idea around it.
Like it's not my job to come up with this. I do need to mold it, but I mean, like based on 19 teams getting 12 spots, it makes it a little bit more clean cut as to who would get in and who would get out. And then the bias would probably fill in the gaps. And I feel like it would limit the bias. I'm okay with a little bit of bias on the back end, but not the front end.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, looking at, 3, I can forgive Georgia for 3 losses after a conference championship game. I can't forgive 3 losses in the regular season. That's where I begin to struggle.
Yeah. I mean, let's take Georgia as that example real quick. They did make the conference championship game. They should be rewarded for that, but they're put near the bottom of the shelf.
Yeah,
because they simply just have 3 losses. That's more losses than anybody else that got shelved.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I got a ton of pushback from this. Oh, Ohio State, they have a bunch of top 5 wins, and their only other loss outside of Michigan was Oregon. And if Oregon beats Penn State, then that means Oregon and Ohio State beat Penn State. But you have to remember that Michigan is a big-time rival, so anything can happen in rivalry games. I got every excuse in the book from Ohio State fans. So Ohio State fans, you can yell at me all you want, but my scenario does cut out a lot of other teams. You're not the only one. But I do have you as one of the higher priority tickets to get back in to the college football playoff based on what happens on conference championship weekend.
Yeah. And I think, this weekend gets very confusing right now because of what we're doing. Because, for example, here you look, let's take both the scenarios of Boise State and SMU. Boise State has a first-round bye. The Mountain West has a spot in the quarterfinals at the moment. All this conference championship game is doing is putting that at risk.
Yeah.
They're not going to get an extra team, basically, is what the committee seems to be saying. Because if Boise State were to lose, even though we have determined them worthy of the playoff right now, but we're going to punish them for this extra data set, sounds like, based on what the committee is currently saying. Because, now they were asked specifically about SMU, whether SMU would drop out, and they said potentially. So we'll get to SMU in a moment.
But are they saying that because SMU was an American team last year
who knows what they're saying at this point.
Also, you want to hear something funny? The top 4 seeds that get a bye: Mountain West, a team that was in the Pac-12, a team that was in the American, and a team that was in the Big 12.
Yeah, based on last year's alignment, I think we have 7 different conferences and independent represented in this playoff at the moment.
Yeah.
That's based on last year's alignment because we have a Mountain West team, former American team, former Big 12 team, former Pac-12 team. You can go on here, but yeah, I like Boise State's just putting that at risk, and why are we playing this extra game in the Mountain West? That's kind of the question that has to be asked at this point because if they lose, all of a sudden their whole season's gone.
Do you know what a forfeiture? Do you know what a forfeiture of a game gets you in college football?
I really don't know, to be honest.
It is a 1-0 loss. You lose by 1 point for just saying, nope, we're not going to play this game. I mean, would it be if you're a UNLV and you absolutely know that you can't make it in no matter what you do?
Well, no, UNLV would make it in if they won this game. But you're basically getting UNLV instead of Boise State. You're not getting an extra team. The Mountain West is not getting an extra team in the playoff because of this. So they're getting UNLV.
And they probably wouldn't get the bye, though.
Instead of having a bye in the quarterfinals, you are getting a number 5 seed. You are likely going to have to go to
would they even fall even further and Notre Dame moves up to 5 in this scenario?
It's possible that Notre Dame could move up to 5. That's what I'm saying. So you would have to either go to South Bend, you have to go to Penn State, you have to go to Texas. One of the 3 is probably where you would have to go. And that's where UNLV would have to go to get to where Boise State is now. That's what the Mountain West is putting at risk. Why are they even playing this game? It's the same for ACC. It's apparent at this point they probably will kick SMU out because they want Alabama in no matter what happens at this point. The committee is completely ignoring the 3-touchdown ugly loss to Oklahoma. So with that being said, I mean, they will leave SMU out if SMU loses the ACC championship. And
does that mean Clemson gets in then because of the auto?
Yeah, Clemson will get in as a conference champion.
As a 3-loss conference champion.
So once again, you're entering this scenario here where you just lost your first round bye. Let's say in the scenario Boise State wins. You're losing your first round bye. Clemson is not going to get ahead of any of the at-large teams. So Clemson would then be the 12th seed. Once again, your only team in the playoff now has to go to Penn State or Notre Dame or Texas to move on. So, again, why is the ACC playing this game?
Are the quarterfinals at that home team stadium, or are they neutral site?
Neutral site.
Okay. So they're not technically going to Texas and stuff like that.
And I hope I don't get this wrong, but I believe how the neutral sites work is, based on the former bowl tie-in. So the Big Ten champ, if they're in the auto bid spot, they go to the Rose Bowl. The SEC champ goes to the Sugar Bowl. That one, it's Sugar or Cotton Bowl. I can't remember which one it is.
I think it's Cotton. Sugar, and I think Big 12 is Cotton.
I think it. No, wait, it could. Yeah, I think it is a Sugar.
Or no, it was Big 10 Fiesta then, or Big 12 Fiesta.
Hey.
It's only been a year.
Or wait, is the Peach Bowl there? Oh crap! I can't remember which ones.
Well, this is not a topic we actually thought about talking about tonight.
No, yeah. Anyways, ACC champ would go to the Orange Bowl, and then Big 12 champ would go to the Fiesta Bowl, and then Boise State in this scenario would replace whichever one does not get the honor. In this case here, Boise State would go to the Fiesta Bowl because Arizona State is currently at the 12. The Big 12 team is not getting a bye, so Boise State would host in the Fiesta Bowl.
So basically, what this graph is telling me is you overvalue SEC, you overvalue Big Ten. You don't care about Big 12. You don't care about ACC, and you are rewarding a group of 5 team, but simply because you have to.
Yeah. And I mean, the Big 12
because you're looking at 4 SEC teams, 3 Big Ten teams. You, as a committee, regardless of how many losses Notre Dame has, because clearly you want a 3-loss Alabama, and so that means clearly a 3-loss Notre Dame would automatically get in, right? According to their logic.
No.
Notre Dame is a big money maker.
Only Alabama.
This graph is all about money.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Standings come into play a little bit, but priority seating goes to money.
Yeah. I think what we're trying to get at is you need a more defined set of characteristics. Something where, we're seeing the teams in, people will still be upset, but ultimately you can respect the math of where you end up.
Like in my scenario, you take the top 2, regardless of if your shitty team beat one of the teams in the conference championship. Because in today's day and age, more than likely, starting next year, it's going to be every team's going to be at least 1 loss. Oregon will probably lose, and there will be 0 undefeated teams this year. But if you give priority to the 2 conference championship game opponents from the Power 4, and then maybe 1 or 2 from like the group of 5, then there's 10 seeds right there. Not all of those 10 seeds will qualify for the playoffs. Unless they win, obviously. But that opens it up to 2 other slots for your favorite teams to get in. So I feel like that is narrowing it down like that would make a cleaner setup for the playoff. And then at the end, if you want to throw Ohio State in over Miami, then let their fans go at it. Whatever. You chose your team. Both are 11-2. Ohio State has better wins. In that scenario, I can see why Ohio State would get in over Miami. And I'm only taking shots at OSU fans because they're the only ones taking shots at me right now.
But yeah, ultimately we need
I think that would be a great start. Yeah.
At least something more defined, because what we have right now is not working. And, the criteria is just, it's not consistent. It doesn't make sense. We have situations like, I think where Miami fans can get most frustrated is at the beginning of this month, Miami was ahead of Alabama. And then the next week,
no,
Alabama,
the beginning of last
month. Alabama beats Mercer.
Beginning of last month.
Yeah.
We're in a different month now.
Whatever. I forgot that we even changed December. Alabama beats Mercer and somehow jumps Miami. And even though they lost in different weeks, that somehow kept Alabama ahead through the rest of the process. So basically, Miami was originally ahead of Alabama a few weeks ago. Alabama beats Mercer and Auburn at home and loses by 3 scores to Oklahoma. Miami loses at Georgia Tech and at a now ranked Syracuse and beats Wake Forest. Obviously that fits right there in the Auburn and Mercer category. But those things happen, and somehow they have determined that Alabama belongs ahead of Miami because of that. It doesn't make sense to me. But anyways,
Anywho.
Well, let's move on to a more celebratory aspect of our show here, and that is our Updog Awards. These are not typical awards. These are, I would say, very silly awards, or just different stats we like to point out.
Some of them are important to us because we came up with them.
Yeah, very true. So, different things we like to celebrate. or Pope Fenna or whatever throughout the year. So, with that being said, our first award on the list is the Dingwell Award. Matt, you want
My
to go into
favorite explanation of the year. I love this explanation. So back in 2012, we were sitting down watching San Diego State against Ohio State. San Diego State had a quarterback who had already thrown how many picks that season, Justin? 3 games into the season?
He entered. No, it was the
Second game.
second game of the season. It was the second game of the season, and he threw 4 picks against Eastern Illinois, I believe, the week before. So, coming into the game, we see that they played Eastern Illinois. He threw 4 picks against them. We were like, oh man, this is gonna go badly.
Yeah, and because Ohio State's defense, wasn't that the year they won the championship? Or was that the year 2 years before? Did they win in 2012 or 2014?
Oh, this is the Urban Meyer first year. So this had to have been 2012.
Yeah.
When they went undefeated, but they weren't eligible for anything.
That's right. So they would have probably won the championship had they been eligible.
That would have been Ohio State versus Notre Dame national championship.
I think that would have been a little bit more fair than Alabama.
It would have been more fair. That might have been more interesting.
But the quarterback's name is Adam Dingwell. Well, I looked him up. He sells insurance in Texas now. Sorry, dude. We just got to use your name because it's stuck with us. Adam Dingwell goes into the first half, and he ends up throwing 3 more picks in that game. So he had like what, 2 touchdowns in the previous game at Eastern Illinois.
He may have had a touchdown like the previous game. It did not
one, maybe 2 touchdowns. So now his ratio is like 1-7 or 2-7. Still very terrible. But we've only played like 6 quarters of football. So 2-7 ratio is absolutely terrible for 6 quarters of football. He gets benched in the second half, and then the rest is history. But we carried that over to college or NCAA football 2014. In one of our dynasties, some guy had thrown a ridiculous amount of picks, not enough touchdowns. So we labeled that as our Dingwell Award winner. So in honor of that, this show has started the Dingwell Award for the worst ratio or highest number of picks if it's absurd.
There's no science to this award at all. We look at the stats and go, okay, this stat line is the most entertaining to us because of how many picks this quarterback threw.
Yeah.
We've had some interesting ones in the past. We had to posthumously award this to former Washington State quarterback Kevin Lopina for his amazing. Oh, sorry, posthumous.
Yeah.
I got out of my skis there trying to get a big word. To Kevin Lopina of Washington State, that one year where Washington State went like 2-10, and their only wins are over a winless Washington. The year that the really bad Apple Cup happened. Kevin Lopina that year had thrown 0 touchdowns and 11 picks. So that one already ends up in the Hall of Fame, even though it happened well before we created this. Also, we have to shout out Art Sitkowski of Rutgers. I forget which year it was, but he had an incredible line of throwing 4 touchdowns to 18 interceptions in one of his seasons at Rutgers. That was pretty incredible. There's a few others on our list, but those are some of our favorites. Absolutely, you know what? You can succeed at winning this award because Jordan Love in the senior year at Utah State won this award and has gone on to succeed in the NFL.
Yeah. I don't know why all of a sudden I'm blurry.
I was like, man, is my vision going out? Like, what is going on?
It was literally fine until like a second ago.
Oh, Matt. You remember everyone watching this show wondering if they need glasses. Anyways.
There I am.
Now that you're clear again.
Technical issue.
Award, this year's Dingwell Award, and it goes to... I don't think it comes through. Just imagine, the dramatic beat. Jake Garcia from East Carolina. He threw 8 touchdowns and 12 picks and got benched like 4 games in. This guy was just throwing interceptions relentlessly during the early part of the season before East Carolina benched him. It turned out he may have been holding back a really good East Carolina offense. They got the year off to an incredible start, which involved giving up 6 turnovers to Norfolk State and still winning easily. And he really just kept it going from there. There wasn't a lot of quarterbacks on the list this year threw more touchdowns than interceptions. They didn't really have an entertaining line. So ultimately, we decided that Jake Garcia fit the real spirit of this award with throwing. I think he threw like 2 less picks than the leading quarterback and did it in a third of the games. So that was impressive work.
Let's see if this shows up. You can kind of see that. You can kind of see that. Yeah, but he's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th down. Yep. And that's how we came up with the criteria, because if you look at the top, pretty much everybody has like way more. Actually, everybody has more touchdowns than picks in that one.
Yep.
So that's why Jake Garcia got our award. Dingwell Award recipient for 2024. Jake Garcia. Our next award.
Justin, Punter of the Year.
Yeah.
So we award this for FBS and FCS. Our Punter of the Year at the FBS level is Alex Mastromano of Florida State. Florida State did not do many things at all well this year. Well, punting was probably what they were best at. He averaged 49.27 yards on 55 punts this year and only 2 touchbacks all year. So he was not kicking them too far either. Truly impressive work by Mastromano. That's also a very fun thing to say. At the FCS level, we have Jeff Yerk of the Elon Phoenix. He averaged 47.85 yards per punt on 60 punts. So excellent work there by Jeff Yerk. Congratulations to you as well.
And those are our punters of the year, FBS and FCS. Justin, who we got?
Next award, we are staying on the special teams with Special Teams Player of the Year. This award, I just felt like I needed to make up because of how ridiculous the stat line is. And that is, this award goes to Ricky White of UNLV. He is also their star receiver, so he was not above making an impact on the special teams unit. He blocked 4 punts this year. And this is more blocked punts by him than about half of college football has total. It's truly impressive what he's done.
Yeah, to block 4 punts, they teach you push the cereal bowl away. That's how you're supposed to act with your hands when you're blocking a punt. He knows how to push a cereal bowl away. Knows how to get back there. Wonder if he can do it at the next level.
The other thing I'm thinking about, because I was really torn whether he had 4 or 5 punts blocked. There was one where he got in so quickly that the punter just tried to take off and run. I don't think that counts on his stat line as a blocked punt.
So theoretically, it probably would have been. He probably would have caught that one and ran up for a touchdown.
Yeah, he did catch one. I think at least 2 of these are returned for touchdowns, by the way. It truly, an incredible year. I've not seen one player be so prolific at blocking punts in a long time.
This is a first-year award. We haven't done this in the past.
No, we have not. So sometimes you'll see awards show up and go away. So our award for the yard machine. This is quarterbacks who have thrown for the most yards.
To be fair, if you don't like the name, blame Justin. It's a work in progress.
It is a work in progress. If you have a better name, feel free to suggest it as well.
Feel free to put it in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we could even change it during the show. So this is not a fancy award. This is not a scientific award. This is simply, we looked and we wanted to point out which quarterback just relentlessly threw for the most yards. At the FBS level, that is Kyle McCord of Syracuse. I mean, well done, Kyle McCord. Moving on from Ohio State to go to Syracuse. Once again, kind of in a pass-heavy offense. And, I mean, he's excelled in it. He led them to a huge upset over Miami this past weekend.
He doesn't need good receivers. He just needs less ego.
Needs less of whatever was going on there. So, yeah, shout out to him for throwing for 4,326 yards. A very impressive season from Kyle McCord. At the FCS level, we mentioned him on the show before. We mentioned this offense on the show before because of how pass-heavy they are. It is Paxton DeLaurent of Southeast Missouri State, the Red Hawks. He threw for 4,087 yards. And most notably, put up probably one of the most ridiculous stat lines I have seen in a long time. He went they lost in the playoffs this past weekend in Illinois State. So their season's now over. In this playoff game, he went 48 out of 85, 567 yards, 4 touchdowns, 5 picks. Just a ridiculous stat line.
Jeez.
To attempt 85 passes in a game is just.
Did you say 5 picks?
Yep, and 5 picks. Yes,
that's ridiculous.
So there's a lot of good and bad in this situation.
Probably more bad. Completion percentage, and this is like when you go in college football 25 and you're playing a really big game, and then you just start hucking it up.
Yeah, and you threw a bunch of picks early, and you're just trying to come back,
making it work.
You know, like you already didn't have a great run game, so you knew already you're going to have to pass a lot. But now you can't even mix in the run because you can't afford to waste the time. So you just have to keep throwing it over and over again. You have to throw a little bit deeper than you wanted to, and this is the end result. But shout out to 85 pass attempts. That's a lot.
Yeah, dude. That's my arm would be so sore after 85 pass attempts with all the warm-ups that you did and practices and stuff. There's no way that they were safe.
He's got the icing his arm still today.
Yeah, because like if a baseball pitcher is pitching like 90 to 110 pitches with a tiny baseball, can you imagine throwing a football? Like, yeah, sometimes it's like a boop, but like trying to laser it in there. So yeah, my shoulder hurts just thinking about it.
Yeah. So a ridiculous season. A wild effort. Next on our award list is our box score of the year. What box score did we end up finding just more amusing than others? And you know what? I think I decided what to do here was to go with an FCS and an FBS one, just because I was torn between them. So I decided, you know what? Why not just do both? So at the FBS level, I think this one will be pretty familiar to a lot of people because it just happened this past weekend. And that is Iowa beating Nebraska 13-10. I mean, this was like the most Iowa-Nebraska game ever, but it's still truly amusing to look at this stat line. Nebraska, 20 first downs. Iowa, 5 first downs all game. Nebraska went 8 for 17 on third downs. Iowa, 0 for 10.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? Like every time they faced third down, they did not attempt fourth down. They just punted.
Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Total yards, Nebraska 334, Iowa 164. And time of possession, Nebraska had the ball for nearly 40 minutes, Iowa just over 20 minutes.
Dang.
And yet Iowa won the game in the game-winning field goal 13-10.
It's that zone defense, man. Raiola can't play against zone. Or no, man. He can play against zone. It's the opposite of Joe Burrow.
It's crazy. But we have to go to the FCS level here for what might be the stat line, but on steroids. This happened all the way back in week 3. Indiana State versus Dayton. Dayton had 19 first downs. Indiana State, 5 first downs. Dayton, third downs, 5 for 16. Indiana State, 0 for 11. Dayton's total yards, 326. Indiana State, 92. 92 total yards. Also, passing the ball, Nebraska they're both red. I keep mixing them up. Dayton had 291 yards passing. Indiana State, 12 yards passing. 12 yards passing. They went 6 for 8 passing, getting 1.5 yards per pass. This team, just absolutely just packed it in this game. And yet, despite that stat line, Indiana State won 24-13. They didn't just win this game. They won by multiple scores.
Dang. Yeah.
How does that even happen?
That's ridiculous. There was an even more ridiculous one you told me earlier. I don't know if you added it to our stat sheet, but the most ridiculous drive of the year, the Mona Lisa of drives.
You're moving on to our next award here. My bad, I got confused.
Geez.
A little late at night here. Our Mona Lisa drive of the year is, if you've listened to the show before, you already know what it's going to be. Army against North Texas. This game was a tight game. Both offenses seemed kind of nervous throughout the game. Not a lot of points are being scored. And then to start the second half, Army just straight up went on a march. From their own 6-yard line, the Black Knights marched relentlessly for 21 plays on a drive that ended the touchdown and took nearly 14 minutes of game time.
That is an epic drive, dude. The combination of penalties, short runs, medium runs, there was probably no long play on that.
No, there wasn't. There was no long play.
It was penalties that brought you forward, penalties that brought you back, and a couple of runs in between.
I mean, honestly, if you give me 1 second here, I might just have to pull up this whole drive real quick.
Yeah. It'll go quick. It's only 21 plays. Bear with it. It's our favorite drive of the year. Anytime you can put together something that takes up 14 minutes of playtime, that's football at its finest.
It is truly a thing of beauty.
That's why we call it the Mona Lisa, because back in the day, it used to be the most conservative offenses if there was no offense to be found. And
here we go.
You never see this anymore. Justin, go ahead.
1st and 10 at the Army 6. Bryson Daly run for 5 yards to the Army 11. 2nd and 5 at the Army 11.
You don't have to go through the downs. You can just go through the plays.
Udo run for 3 yards. Then on 3rd down, Bryson Daly run for 5 yards. Udo run for 3 yards. Bryson Daly run for 2 yards. They did throw a pass. 3rd and 5. This was the opportunity for North Texas to get off the field. Army just completed the pass for 7 yards. Then you could tell at this point they're starting to get gutted, even though Army's still on their side of the field. Noah Short, run for 8 yards. Kanye Udo, run for 6 yards. Bryson Daly, run for 17 yards. It's picking up now. And then North Texas is like, you know what? Maybe we're going to bow up. Maybe we're going to stop this thing. Bryson Daly runs for only 2 yards. Bryson Daly runs for 3 yards. Bryson Daly gets stuffed for 1 yard. Oh man, Army's facing 4th down. Then they take a timeout, preserve some time, and then they run for just enough to get the 1st down. Oh no, this thing is continuing. And then just when we think it's getting backed up, they run for 4 yards. There's a holding penalty. It gets brought back. Then Miles Stewart runs for 7 yards. Noah Short runs for 10 yards. And then on 3rd and 3, Bryson Daly runs for 4 yards. Another 1st down just when North Texas had the opportunity.
And if you're just joining us, this is going over the 21-play, 14-minute drive that took 94 yards. And this is our drive of the year.
And then by the way, this is where we cross over from the 3rd quarter to the 4th quarter at this point. Bryson Daly runs for 6 yards. They're getting near the end zone now. Runs for 3 yards. Runs for 3 more yards. Oh no, it's 1st and goal from the North Texas 2. Runs for 1 yard, and then punches it in from 2 yards out on 2nd and goal. That is the end of the Mona Lisa drives. You could just imagine being a defensive player just going against this. You had multiple opportunities to go out the field, but Army, just being the machine that they are, just keeps converting, and you're just defeated by the end of this drive. And by the way, it does not get much better because North Texas threw a pick in the next drive.
Yeah, that was the Mona Lisa drives. That was fantastic. Justin, what other awards we got?
All right, we have our upset of the year at the FBS level and the FCS level. At the FBS level, for upset of the year was Northern Illinois over Notre Dame. I mean, even looking back at this thing, it makes no sense. Notre Dame had just come off the big win at Texas A&M, beat them by 10 points. And then this Northern Illinois team just rolls in, controls the game, makes a play at the end to get in field goal range. They kick a field goal and take down the Irish. Notre Dame has been a wagon ever since this game, has been absolutely unstoppable, and has blown out a bunch of opponents. Northern Illinois, meanwhile, went on to have a bunch of mistake-ridden losses to the point where the Huskies entered after their 10th game. I believe they were 5-5, but outgained every single opponent they played because they just became an error-prone team that just could not finish drives. But in this one game, they came out of nowhere and just had their best game of the year while Notre Dame had their worst. And in hindsight, this result just makes no sense.
If you're joining us and you are getting us clearly, then perfect. But I'm getting messages from YouTube saying that our bit rate is currently 0 and the recommended rate should be 44.1 to 48. So if you aren't seeing us clearly, my bad. Justin, any more awards?
At the FCS level, the upset of the year was Samford over Mercer. Samford beat them 55-35. At this point, Mercer was undefeated, had been a wagon, dominating the Southern Conference. Samford was very much struggling. They lost their season opener to West Georgia, a team who was transitioning from Division II. It had been a miserable year for the Bulldogs. And against the defense that had been dominant, they put up at least, I believe it was at least 42 points in the first half of this game on their way to a 55-35 win. Just went all over a defense that had been stopping everybody. And this result made no sense later on. Like, this did not springboard a better season for Samford. In fact, I'm pretty sure Samford didn't win again until they, out of nowhere, blew out Chattanooga to end Chattanooga's.
Chattanooga!
Mercer, meanwhile, resumed controlling the Southern Conference after this game. They did not lose again outside of, the when they got sacrificed to Alabama because the ridiculous late season SEC games. Outside of that, they did not lose to another FCS team and got themselves a 7th seed in the playoffs. This game made no sense in hindsight, but we love the randomness of it.
Yeah. What's our next award, Justin?
The play of the year. We are going to post a clip of this with when we share this video again tomorrow morning. The play of the year was a few weeks ago. Louisiana Tech's receiver. I wish I can remember his name at this point. He caught a pass behind his back. That was already ridiculous enough. But afterwards, he takes off and runs it for a touchdown. All of this is part of a wild game between them and Jacksonville State. But this play just was incredible from start to finish. The catch was incredible, and the run after the catch was also incredible. That's what made it our play of the year. Our next award is our Chaos Teams. At the FBS level, the Chaos Team was the Kansas Jayhawks. The Jayhawks came out of nowhere to roll three straight wins over ranked teams and killed the multi-bid Big 12, and then immediately followed it up by collapsing against Baylor last week to miss out on the bowl game. They did all of that for nothing. And that's what made them the perfect Chaos Team. And then the FCS level is the Monmouth Hawks. Monmouth got an FBS win when they upset FIU in the wild shootout. And then most of their midseason was spent basically losing games. They just kept losing over and over. And then the end of the year, all of a sudden they go and upset Villanova, which prevented Villanova from winning the conference or getting a top 8 seed. And then upset Stony Brook, kicking the Seawolves out of the playoffs. So
hey, hold on. It's our first chat since we figured out where our chat is. Bryce from 1796 says, "What's up?"
What's up, Bryce?
He doesn't actually say what's up, but I'll show you later.
Okay.
Just figured I'd give Bryce a shout out.
Shout out.
Go ahead.
That is it for our Chaos Teams. Now we go into turnover margin. Best turnover margin. So which teams are doing the best job taking care of the ball and forcing turnovers from other teams. At the FBS level, we have the James Madison Dukes, who did a fantastic job of this. They had a plus 17 turnover margin, forcing 26 turnovers and only giving up 9. Weirdly enough, This did not help them much at all. They actually won the turnover margin in most of their losses, which is also a very bizarre stat. At the FCS level, now it did help this team. North Dakota State, also plus 17. This team just was so clean of an operation. They forced 20 turnovers. Very nice, very nice. But what really stuck out to me about the Bison is they only gave up 3 turnovers all year. 2 interceptions, 1 fumble.
Dang.
That is just plain, clean, old-fashioned football.
That's clean.
The ball is the program. The Bison understand that better than anybody. Worst turnover margin. Now, which teams are just the sloppiest teams around the sport? The FBS level, we have the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. They lost 29 turnovers. That consisted of 17 picks thrown and 12 fumbles. That is a lot of fumbles.
Yeah.
You ever carry the thing like a loaf of bread out. They made a coaching change, and hopefully whoever they bring in as their new coach will get this problem resolved. It does tell me, like, they also gained 10 turnovers, so they didn't do a good job forcing turnovers either. I think that's encouraging for whoever takes this job, because at least, if you clean up the turnovers a little bit, you can already be more competitive in the Sun Belt. At the runner-up at the FBS level, by the way, was Central Michigan. who lost 22 turnovers. And this team was just one that could not force a turnover at all. They gained only 5 turnovers. Like, you can get lucky and usually gain more turnovers than that. Only 5 gained all year. Jim McElwain retired. So once again, whoever takes over that job will be looking at turnover margin as a way to, find themselves a way to get improved next year. At the FCS level, now we have some crazy ones here. The Stetson Hatters. They are a non-scholarship team, so you're already kind of facing your struggles there. They lost 31 turnovers. 27 picks were thrown. And actually, they did a pretty good job not fumbling. They only fumbled it 4 times. 27 picks is the outlier. They only gained 7 turnovers, so they were not good at forcing turnovers either. A ridiculous minus 24 margin. So that really blows out any of the worst turnover margins. They definitely win this award. Stetson has also made a coaching change. So, a new coach can at least look at some positives to try to turn this around. Runner-up was the Murray State Racers. They lost 26 turnovers, only gained 9 this year. Murray State brought in a lot of FBS transfers this offseason, was number 1 in FCS in bringing FBS transfers. It didn't help them at all. Finally, we end our awards with the game of the year at FBS and FCS level. The FBS game of the year, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, the Jacksonville State Louisiana Tech game. We wanted to go a little bit off the radar here and bring attention to a game that hadn't been noticed. This game was just incredible. We had the Louisiana Tech behind the back catch for a touchdown. Both teams just went back and forth. Jacksonville State hits a Hail Mary to supposedly win the game, but they missed the extra point, so it goes to overtime where Jacksonville State wins. I mean, this just had all the craziness that you would want from a college football game. Truly an incredible game. While at the FCS level, this one's probably a more basic choice, but it just was a big game that lived up to the hype. The Dakota Marker. This game was on ESPN2. Just was a tough, grinded out game between North Dakota State and South Dakota State. You got to see North Dakota State Cam Miller go on a clutch drive to finally take the marker back from South Dakota State. It just was, everything that you would want in the football
game. Does that conclude our awards?
That concludes our awards.
Because I'm ready to talk about the upcoming games.
Conference Championship Week.
Conference Championships. In our model of the college football playoff, these mean something.
Yes.
But before we get to that, Justin, you know what we didn't account for?
What did we not?
We didn't account for me using ESPN's website. You know what else I didn't account for?
What is that?
The fact that it has all the information I need. Ticket prices, spread. I don't like ESPN Bet, but I do like that they consolidated everything into one thing. So shout out to the one thing that ESPN does good. Does good. On Friday, December 6th.
Yeah.
UNLV travels to Boise, Idaho to take on the
Hang on, we're going alphabetical order here. Friday, we have Army.
I'm going in date order, sir.
Not to jump around my shirt.
Boise State's favored. Tickets are as low as $43. I think if you're out in that area, I think that'd be a great game to go to because it actually means something for the two of them. UNLV trying to get their way in and kick Boise State out. Boise State trying to get some attention to the program or to the
this
conference.
This is the West game of all time.
Yeah,
the winner of the game is going to the playoff.
What's weird is I've noticed that prices for conference championship games are way lower this year.
Yeah, You know why that is? It's because everyone's trying to save up money for the playoff tickets.
Yeah.
Because they know that's going to be tougher to get. But yeah, Boise State with a win here, they would likely get a bye in the first round.
But
which is a
you can also get notoriety for this game.
Oh
because,
yeah,
because the advertising alone, dude, you could be like, hey, this is the first time a Mountain West team has a chance to make the playoffs. Come on out, $43. Come see history.
Big Noon on Fox is going to be there. Like, it's a big deal. This game.
We're a big proponent for going to games. Sorry to keep interrupting, but
yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of weird because there's actually a ticket fiasco going on where people bought tickets and then they were told there weren't enough tickets. So I really don't know why there's tickets showing up for $43. There may or may not be tickets available to this game. Nobody knows at this point. But yeah, for Boise State, they have been a program. I mean, it was more so a little over a decade ago. They were knocking on the door. They were undefeated, waiting for this chance. They are here. They finally have this chance now. UNLV, meanwhile, has historically been a program that has struggled. They could completely turn around the image of their program here with a win in this game. So this is massive. This is the biggest Mountain West game of all time.
Yeah.
Who will win?
The who will win? I got Boise State.
I have Boise State winning it as well. I think I think we get the good Maddox Madsen in this game. He shows up for the moment, makes some big throws to relieve the pressure that is on Ashton Genty, because UNLV is going to follow the same strategy of stacking the box with 9 men in there. So I think your men. Next is
Tulane versus Army. 8:00 on ABC in West Point, New York. I think Army, this might be one of the scenarios where campus just shuts down. Everybody in the Army, as long as you're near West Point, New York, will show up to this game. Tickets are as low as $28. Tulane, though, has the edge. But I think those Army cadets and those former military members will show up to this game loud and proud. I think Army's going to win. They're 10-1. Tulane's 9-3. Tulane does have some holes, but Army has shown that they have the capability of putting up a 21 play, 94-yard, 14-minute drive. So I got Army. I think they're going to do probably not the same thing, but probably like an 18 play, like 89 yards for 10 minutes.
This is quite a huge opportunity for Army. I mean, they could go in the American in their first year and win the conference. That would be quite the statement. Tulane, meanwhile, how do they rebound after their disappointment on Thanksgiving getting upset by Memphis? Green Wave were in position where they could potentially interfere at the Big 12 in getting that auto bid. And, they had their eyes potentially in the playoff spot. And now here they are, they got dropped all the way out, probably feel disrespected at this point. How does Tulane respond? I just think, Army is going to be the death by 1,000 paper cuts offense. They just kind of march down the field. Home field advantage is huge this time of year. Tulane is going to have to go all the way up north where it's going to be cold. It's going to be very cold on Friday, by the way. I see Army winning this one as well.
Yeah, AccuWeather says 27 degrees.
Yeah, that's going to be quite frigid.
Saturday, December 7th, 12 noon on ABC. Iowa State takes on Arizona State.
There's a lot on the line here.
Yeah, at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Tickets are as low as $42 to this one. So if you've never been to Jerry's World, for $42 which is quite a less amount of money that it took us to go to the playoff for UC there. If they are available at that price, definitely go. And this one, I got Arizona State. I'm riding the back of Scatibo and Scatibo. I screwed that up earlier in front of my boss, and I figured I'd like try to make fun of that, and then I actually like got the two screwed up. Scatterboo is going to run wild in this one. It's going to be a great game, but I think it's going to be. By the way, this is the Dr. Pepper Big 12 championship. They sold the rights.
Oh yeah, don't forget about that. Can't forget.
The only one to sell the rights is the Big 12. Hell yeah, Dr. Pepper of all places. Nothing more American.
This is the first time these programs have ever faced off. Arizona State looking to win the Big 12 in their first year. Momentum for this program will be absolutely absurd if they win this game. Iowa State, meanwhile, has reached their first 10-win season of program history. And now the Cyclones have their eyes set on their first conference title since 1912.
Dang.
They have the longest route of every program. But on Saturday, I think they end it. Give me the Cyclones to take
You
down
will not get that if you don't bring back the little twister logo.
Yeah, bring back the old logo too.
Yeah. But yeah, indoor stadium, no temperature listed, nothing crazy there. It's a beautiful stadium. If you get the chance, go. 4 o'clock, ABC, Georgia.
What are you looking at, Matt? You're like missing like half the games. Okay, you know what? We're done. We're done with your system.
My system is in time order. This is noon, 4, 8, 8.
Yeah, you're missing like a couple games at noon.
Oh, this is just ESPN. So I'm going off of what ESPN has here.
No wonders why. So we're gonna go back to going through conference order because ESPN scoreboard has failed that. We're in end of season form here. We're not in the smooth form. Okay,
we're in the eye of bronchitis and want to lay down and go to sleep.
Okay, so in the ACC, we have SMU versus Clemson. SMU can get a first-round bye in the college football playoff with a win. If Clemson wins, SMU will probably get kicked out because there's no way they would put SMU in over Alabama because brand means more than resume. Clemson would, after all of this adventure throughout the year, Clemson would somehow reach the playoff. So kind of crazy game here. Who do you think will win this
one? I have SMU. It's going to be a great game. I think Clemson's actually figuring it out, but it's going to be cold in North Carolina. But I don't think that's going to really affect SMU with that much. $47 if you want to go to the game. A little cold, but nothing better than some cold football. SMU's favored. I'm favoring them as well. I don't know. I think they just seem to be that team where everyone's like, oh wow, like look at where the ACC has come from the past like 4 years. So all of a sudden SMU out of nowhere just wins it. Like I think that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm obviously I'm rooting for them.
Florida State and Clemson and North Carolina are all on their way out anyway because they're fed up with the conference. So,
but yeah, so I don't know. I want SMU to win this game and reach the playoff, but it just feels like we're getting set up for a situation here where Clemson somehow wins this game, and then we're left with that debate, and they still put Alabama. So I see Clemson winning this one because I just get a gut feeling that it's going to happen. In the Big Ten, Oregon versus Penn State. Have these two ever played each other before? I feel like they probably have.
If they have, if you want to look that up, actually, it may be on the preview on this. I switched over to CBS for accurate.
Wow, they've actually played 4 times. Dang. Last meeting was in 1995 in the Rose Bowl. Penn State beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl 38-20. They met in the Liberty Bowl, back when the Liberty Bowl was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in 1960. That was their first meeting. It was in the Liberty Bowl in 1960. Penn State won 41-12. And then in 1963, they played in Portland, Oregon. Penn State won 17-7. And then in 1964, they played at Penn State, which is Oregon's only win. So Oregon is 1-0 in Happy Valley, but 0-3 at neutral or home sites.
So I think Oregon evens this up a little bit more. I mean, Oregon's a wagon, dude. I don't know how else to explain it. They're well coached. They got great players. Like, I thought they were going to lose a couple of games, and they surprised me. Dylan Gabriel was playing out of his mind.
This is the kind of game that Oregon's going to show up for. This is the kind of game where James Franklin's teams tend to turtle a bit.
Oh, by the way, this is by far the one thing I wanted to mention about this. This is by far the cheapest game to go to.
Yeah,
it's at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. Shout out Pat McAfee. Low as $20.
Yeah, no, I've even seen where it's as low as $12.
Yeah,
because we got a combination of things here. We have Oregon fans prepping for the college football playoff, so there's not really a lot of incentive to go to this game across the country. This is a far drive for Penn State as well. And then also, the Ohio State fans flooding the market selling their tickets. This is just a perfect storm of events to make this game very cheap and probably not fill up. So, yeah, this is a game where Penn State and James Franklin tend to turtle a little bit. I'm going to pick against some of these big games until they prove me wrong. I got Oregon winning this one.
Yeah.
In Conference USA, Jacksonville State versus Western Kentucky. I actually think this game's on Friday. So they met. This is a weird one because these two teams just played this past week, and Western Kentucky won to get to this game. But this time, instead of being in Bowling Green, Kentucky, they are now playing in Jacksonville, Alabama. The one thing to watch here is the health of Tyler Huff. He got hurt during that game. But that being said, assuming everything's healthy, Matt, who do you have winning this one?
I still have Jacksonville State winning. I think Rich Rod has hit his true form in coaching this season, and I think the team is gathering around. Huff, if they do lose him, that's a huge, huge loss. But Jacksonville State, they just seem to keep getting better week by week. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, they've been playing very well. Western Kentucky,
they are who we thought they were. That's this is what we thought they were going to do all season.
Yeah. Took them a few weeks to get going, but then once the it's like an old lawnmower, takes a little bit to start, and then once it really got going. Western Kentucky, meanwhile, is kind of really stalled out on offense here in the last month. That's kind of a concern for me. It was enough. They obviously with Jacksonville State losing Huff during the game, they kind of stalled out without him. Western Kentucky was able to pull off the victory. I think their stalling offense might be too much here, especially now that it's at Jacksonville State. I see Jacksonville State winning this one. Time for some action. The Miami Redhawks looking to repeat as MAC champions. The first ever Battle for the Victory Bell rematch in the MAC championship, because they are going to be playing the Ohio Bobcats. The Ohio Bobcats have been in the MAC championship before in recent years. They have been a very steady force at the top of the MAC. Head coach Tim Albin has coached out of his mind this year. They lost so many starters in the spring and yet still managed to get to this game. The Ohio Bobcats are looking for their first MAC championship since 1968.
Dang.
Is today, or do the Redhawks repeat?
Honestly, I would love to see Ohio win. I mean, we are big MAC fans. We're Bowling Green alumni. And so we really like Maction a lot. But at a sacrifice of Bowling Green missing this whole thing, I want to say Ohio, but I got to go with my original pick from the beginning of the year, Miami. I think they came out with a massive win over Bowling Green last week. I think they keep that heat going, and I think they figure something else out in the short term.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of ironic that these two play because I felt like the first meeting between these two was kind of when Miami began to figure things out this year. You know, like when they entered MAC play, you know, I mean, at the end of conference and non-conference play, you know, they won the overtime game over UMass. Like, you know, they entered MAC play still playing ugly ball, still turning the ball over too much in the red zone. And then against Ohio in their first meeting was really when the Redhawks seemed to figure it out. You know, they seemed to round into form on the offense, you know, play a little bit cleaner, not make the mistakes they had been making. You know, the defense started to dominate a little bit. And we've seen them really turn into a wagon here in the last month or so. I think that continues here. I'm going to go with the hot hand, and that's Miami.
Speaking of hot hands, we head on down to Cajun Field in Lafayette, Louisiana.
The Louisiana Raging Cajuns versus the Marshall Thundering Herd. The Raging Cajuns are 10-2. They have had an incredible season. Winning this one could put them on their way to finishing in the top 25, which would be a huge accomplishment. Marshall, meanwhile, is in a peculiar situation here where they have reached this game with a head coach that no longer has a contract. You know, despite that, this Marshall team, like after they had the blown lead against Georgia Southern early on in conference play, and ever since then, this team has just managed to just keep winning. You know, when it feels like the odds are against them, they just have been finding ways to win games. Can they keep that going, or the distractions prove to be too much?
I think Marshall is a very quiet 9-3, but Louisiana, man, they were blending in with the thought that we thought of Jacksonville State was going to be. They stole the Jacksonville State identity, and I think they continue that, and I think they run through Marshall.
Yeah, they have been a complete wagon this year. I got to go with the Raging Cajuns as well. Can't pick against them here, especially at home. This team is pretty good. Then we have the SEC Championship. Texas versus Georgia. Who will get a bye in the first round is what's at stake here. The loser probably will host a first-round game. You know, Texas lost the first meeting in this game. I'm not particular. I feel like a lot of people are excited for this game. I'm not, because the first meeting was just so boring. The only highlight was when Texas fans got pissed at the refs after a bad call and threw stuff on the field, and then the refs overturned it. And then, you know, obviously that's become a problem across the whole sport where fans now throw stuff on the field to get refs to overturn calls. So, yeah, we're doing this again. Who do you think wins this one?
Georgia. It's in Atlanta. So technically their home turf. Texas, we talked about this earlier. I don't know. I don't remember how he put it, but it was basically like Texas doesn't like have the it factor. Like it just seems like they're there. Like it seems like they really should have lost more games. Georgia somehow loses 2 games, and Carson Beck is now playing well. I think that was a big difference maker in like the earlier part of the season. But I think Georgia comes out with a win. I mean, it's basically in their home territory. They're used to big games like this. I think they thwart Texas's attempt at taking over the SEC.
Yeah, you know, Texas did impress me with what they did last week against Texas A&M. I thought that was where Texas would finally get exposed. The opposite happened. They smothered the Aggies' offense all game long. So Texas seems to have the defense to contend here. The problem is, do they have the offense? Their offense was really the only thing that kept Texas A&M alive that whole game. Quinn Ewers threw the Aggies' only touchdown of that game. Texas just doesn't seem to have the offense to be able to win this game. Georgia absolutely smothered them in the first meeting, and I can see a repeat happening here. Yeah. I think they'll once again be smothered by Georgia and not go anywhere, and this will probably be another snooze fest, to be honest.
Tickets to this are on ESPN, so we know they've been wrong so far tonight. $115 to get in, so still cheaper than what you'd normally find. But yeah, I'm excited for this weekend, dude. It'll set everything in shape, and that way we can put the committee's decisions behind them.
Well, on to a championship game that doesn't have to deal with any committee. At the FCS level, I decided to keep it a conference championship week theme here, and that is the SWAC championship. Jackson State versus Southern. Jackson State has been a wagon this year for the most part. They have not lost since early in the year. Southern, meanwhile, rolled through the West Division. Who do you think wins this one?
I think Jackson State does. I mean, last year was a goodbye Dion, hello new identity. I think that they've kind of figured out their identity. They know the types of players they want on their team. I think the coaching staff is figuring that out. And that's why they're a wagon this year. I think they continue on.
Yeah. I mean, there was the weird upset loss to Grambling. That was like even though they're conference foes, it was a non-conference game. But ever since that game, Jackson State has just plowed through everybody. And I can't see them losing this game as well. I think they get themselves to the Celebration Bowl with a dominating effort here.
Yeah. So that is our picks for the weekend. Tell us what your picks are, and we may share them if you get them in time.
Oh, we forgot to put up the stakes here. So we both had a very bad week picks last week, but it allowed me to maintain my lead. I currently lead with an 89-51 record. Matt has an 84-56 record. Despite the fact that we've been picking all year, Matt basically led all season, and then week 13 turned out to be unlucky 13 for Matt, as he had his worst week of the year while I had my best week of the year. And that is basically the difference in all of this. Matt has otherwise led this whole thing.
Yeah. So, Justin, you win this year. Little surprising. You did all of that research early in the year, and I just took the teams at face value, and I almost got as many picks. Right as you.
Yeah. I didn't even check this. Okay, so I only deferred in 2 games. So I did end up winning the competition this year, but Matt could at least get bragging rights for this week. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Is that their show?
Yeah, that's the show.
Dang, dude. I guess it was about an hour and a half, but we had a lot to fit in. Sorry it went so long. Not normally this long of a show. I know we normally do favorite food and stuff, but do you have anything quick?
No, I think the bronchitis is telling you you're not.
Yep. I can tell you my favorite homeopathic medicine that I found at Walgreens.
No thanks.
No, I actually can't tell you. I don't know how to pronounce it. All right, that's the show. We'll see you guys later.
Cold close. Let's see. Tell us how you like
it. Just no goodbye after that.
Just no goodbye. All right. This is it. The cold close.